Hey, it's Sunday on Alphabet Soup. I'm Margaret, and I'm having a really shitty day. I found like 4 new gray hairs. I'm having a bad hair day. I have like this pimple thing going on here. So bear with me, and I have homework and stuff too, Lauren. Okay, so the topic this week is the internet. My job, what I do for a living, is developing web applications to support our holistic advising in a higher education context. So I'm pretty familiar with a lot of issues related to and surrounding the usage of the internet. Also, I don't really appreciate the fact that being web savvy, or whatever you want to call it, has been so closely associated with being dorky or a nerd, because I don't really consider myself to be dorky or a nerd, but maybe I'm just delusional. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is internet and culture, because one of the biggest things that I have to deal with on a daily basis is the perception of technology and how it's used and what our expectations are. And there's a big gap. Some of it is generational, some of it is just what people are used to, but I think the intention of the internet and a lot of the technologies that I develop are to make them as user-friendly as possible, to make information easily accessible, and all of these positive things that we've been talking about all week. But when it comes down to it, another big part of my job is PR and marketing and getting people to accept these new technologies because they're used to pen and paper. You know, they know how to do their jobs. They've been doing them for 20 years. And unless we can really prove that the technology is going to make their jobs easier, faster, and make their advising better for their students, most people don't want to hear about it. So that's a struggle that I face on a pretty regular basis. And I think some of the younger generations don't have that. You know, they receive technology as this new and innovative thing. They're willing to try new things. And I think actually that's one of the reasons why all of the new Facebook redesigns have been so problematic, and why maybe some of the like Google technologies and Gmail developments have been more successful. And the reason for that is because the Google development is based on user feedback and testing and data mining that they have done to really determine what the end users want. And, you know, one of my comments about all the Facebook changes was like, where are these coming from? Because it seems like with every new version, people complain more. And it doesn't ever seem like they were complaining to begin with to necessitate a change. So I know personally when I'm working on new developments for my job, one of the biggest things to me is to get user feedback before you make the changes, so that you really know why these things are happening, what impact they're going to have, and on who. Okay, so that's my professional opinion. And then the internet in terms of the LGBTQ community has been an incredible resource, and I think it's only growing, and obviously that's why our channel is around. But just personally, when my boyfriend started to transition, I definitely scoured the internet for any information and resources that I could find, not only to help him through the transition, but also to support myself in that support role. So, you know, I found a listserv for partners of F to M's, and that's been an interesting experience because a lot of them are older and identify very strongly as lesbians. And so that's been kind of their biggest struggle in the transition process. And I think when I joined the list, my intention was to really just get information about, you know, what's going to happen when he starts hormones, what surgeons are the best, how do you, you know, do an injection the right way, and kind of the more practical things. So that's been interesting. And we also stumbled upon Transster, which is an F to M surgery website, which is a really, really great resource You can get information on surgeons and see the actual outcomes of their procedures. So that is helpful. And the final thing that I want to talk about, and this kind of goes back to the generational differences in perception, is I've done some research and presentations on identity tourism on the internet, and it's a theory that comes out of communication studies, but I think it's applicable in a number of different areas, and the internet is definitely a big one. So I was doing a presentation on the theory of identity tourism in my LGBT history class a couple of quarters ago. And I was talking about how the internet really gives kind of younger people, oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, okay, false alarm. Younger people the opportunity to define themselves, try on a couple of different hats, genders, names, whatever you want, until you're comfortable and you know what feels right. And I think that that's really a helpful thing. I think you don't really have any other opportunity to do that other than online, just because the nature of identity is so rigid in terms of how you're perceived, but the internet gives people more flexibility to really explore their identity and all facets of that. And so I went through this whole presentation and I thought I did a pretty good job. And my professor, who happened to be a very much older generation, kind of traditional gay man, came out of the Stonewall era, totally shot me down and said, I think this is inappropriate, I don't think it exists, I think it's deceptive, I think it's manipulative. And I just could not believe that somebody who came from a community that is so marginalized would not want to take advantage of any opportunity to allow members of their community to explore in a safe way. So that was pretty interesting. And, there were also people in my class saying, well, you can't tell somebody that you're male and then not be male. And how does that work? That's lying. That's not fair. So we still have a long way to go. And I think, it's through channels like ours and really the best information possible that we can put out there for people to reach that's going to move us along. And there's a lot of bad information out there too. So I think we have to take the responsibility to put our own personal experiences out there and really vouch for them. So that's the internet. Have a good week, everybody, and I will see you next Sunday.